let's go ahead and talk about home office costs. So home office overhead or home office cost is the types of items that cannot be readily charged to any one specific project. What do I mean by that? Suppose that you have a headquarter as a general contractor that actually gives service to multiple projects, right? So if you have that nature of work, basically what's happening is that entity, that headquarter, is now providing service to more than one project. It actually does provide service to projects that you probably end up not getting, right? So at the end of the day, what happens is that in order for you to stay in business, you have to have that headquarter, um, and you have to feed those guys, right? It can be a CEO, it can be a pre-construction department, it can be XYZ, whatever that there may be. So that means that we need to somehow find a way to cover those costs. So our way, and you can tell that it's going to be very complicated, right? Because you know how in the world do we exactly know how much of the pre-construction department's time is spent on a very specific project? Even if we know that, what happens to their time that they spend on a project that your company end up not receiving, right? So it's going to be a very massive, complex, and non-linear process, if I want to describe it. However, there's a way to actually linearize it. There's a way to simplify it that makes actually very good sense. And that's what we're trying to do. So before we look at that way, another thing I was going to say, like general conditions cost, if the term general overhead or the term indirect overhead costs is used, it's the same as the home office, okay? So with that said, let's look at a bunch of items that could be included: the office rent, office utilities, postage, insurance of the office, tax pertaining to that headquarter, any advertisement that you do, travels, vehicles, salaries is a big one. So all of these items that you need to spend in order to stay in business, in order to run your headquarter, is the home office cost. Okay, so here's my way of looking at this. I am going to look at how much revenue my company generates every year. Okay, so let's say that $100 million. I have a big company and I can generate $100 million, right? And then the next question is how much does my home office cost overall, regardless? So that's something that the accountants can actually easily tell you, right? So how much the home office costs overall? Let's say $2 million, right? So now let's take a look at what I just told you. So let's assume that I'm throwing numbers at this. $100 million is my total revenue that I'm generating, and then $2 million is my home office cost. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that for every dollar that I'm making, right, I need to spend 2 cents out of it to stay in the business, right? So for every dollar that I'm making, and how do I come up with this? I said, let's take 2 divided by 100, and that's 2 cents per dollar. Correct? So really what I'm doing here is that I am saying that for every dollar that I'm making here, I need to spend 2 cents of it to my home office to stay in the business, right? Fantastic. So that I have some measure right there, 2%, 5%. Now let's say that you are about to place your bid on a project that's worth 10 million. So let's say that a new project is 10 million, right? Now the argument is that, can I extend what I just found here to this new situation and say, fine, when you have $10 million of cost or of direct cost, let's allocate 2% to your home office that's coming from right there. So then say 2% of that, what is it? Is like 2% of 10 mil. Is it 200,000 or whatever that number is going to be my home office cost. It's as easy as that. So we're simplifying the problem. We say that for every new bid, I'll literally just use this number that I just found in a percentage sense, and then I go from there, right? So let's take a look at an example. Let's say that you anticipate a home office cost for a fiscal year to be that much, and anticipate the sales volume of your fiscal year to be 9.5 million, right? So what's the percentage of your home office? So how many cents do you need to spend on your home office if you make $1, right? And that would be as easy as that. So that's the equation for you to refer to. So that would be the cost of home office divided by your annual revenue generation, and 7.3%, right? Assignment 13, I'm asking you to do it the exact same thing for your semester project. Okay. Now, however, instead of giving you two numbers, I'm actually breaking this guy into items. I say, let's assume that you have to give salary of whatever, you have to, you have a rental, you have to rent a place for, whatever number of dollars or so forth. But the goal is really the same thing. All right, so with that said, that's my really discussion about home office overhead. Now let's go back to my Bitmaster, the file that I've been working on throughout, and it actually has been shaping up pretty nicely. I mean, I'm happy about it. As you guys can see, there are numbers everywhere. I have, starting from general conditions, I have numbers here. These are the results of your work on assignments, and these are the results of my work on the assignment, because I did ask you not to turn this assignment in, but you can still actually grab these numbers and populate your own sheet with them. And then these are the results or the work that we've put in together as far as subcontractors selection and information assessment, and that's one number that I received. Now the home office cost, as you guys can see, we just talked about how that percentage is calculated. Let's say it turns out to be 3%, right? You just put it in there, right? 4%, whatever that number may be. So like I said, I just really explained the way of finding that percentage. Once you find that percentage, you just go ahead and populate it here in this sense. And remember, your original Bitmaster file does not have a line here saying home office. I think I changed my escalation to home office, but you could change any one of these to what you need to. So for Billy C Store, we don't have a home office cost, but I'm going to leave it blank for now. Let's take a look at what we have. So we have a subtotal here, which is really the summation of all the costs for every sheet that we just have collected all together. And then you have permit, you have general liability insurance, builder's risk, and these are the types of things that we actually did together. You have a percentage for bond, construction fee, that's your profit. Let me kind of put that in parentheses here. That's your profit. Although you can see that I'm using a line number saying that RS Means actually is giving us details or helping us with average profit in fee, but this is your call really for your semester project. Now in this number is my total bid sale, right? That is including everything. That's the number that I'm going to place my bid for. I say I need 488,000 and whatever that change to get Belly C-Store project done. Does that make sense? So that's my total bid sale. Now, speaking from the perspective of that markup, let's take a look at it. So we said that your markup or total project, let me also say bid sales, is comprised of two major items, correct? And item one is direct cost, and item two, which is labeled here gross profit, is really nothing but indirect costs, right? And we said that in turn, really number two is made out of 3 plus 4 plus 5, right? So if I take these numbers and add them all together, it's going to give me gross profit. And if I take these two numbers and add them all together, it's going to give me this guy right here. Okay, so now question, how much, what portion of this is direct cost and what portion of this is indirect cost, right? I personally think finding the direct cost is probably adding more numbers together. So these are all direct costs except for this guy right here. That one is indirect. So really, from the $431,000, the subtotal, everything but the first sheet is going to be direct cost, right? So what can I do about this? Can I just simply go ahead and say, fine, my indirect cost is going to be the summation of numbers in the first sheet right there, plus all these numbers that I have here. So this is indirect permit and liability insurance, bond. If I have a home office, let me actually go ahead and add that, pretend that I have a home office too. These are all indirect costs, right? That I can tell, correct? I can also say that, you know, fair enough. If I know this is my total indirect cost, I know that indirect cost minus, let me write that down. So so we have it. So I will also know that indirect cost, I will know that direct cost plus my gross profit is going to make the total bid sales. Agreed? So I know what this is. I know what this is. I can find that one. So I can simply come in here and say that my direct cost is going to then be for the total bid sales less my gross profit. I could also have said that my gross my total direct is going to be this number subtotal minus the first sheet right here, and I expect to get the same number as that one, which actually, thank God, it happens to be the case, right? So same fashion of thinking, really your call. I mean, I'm giving you one way of looking at this, but you know, there are many ways of adding and subtracting these numbers to get to the point. But again, my message to you, be sure that you break your total into direct and indirect costs correctly. That's very important. Now let's focus on this gross profit. So if this is my gross profit, what I would say is that my field overhead is going to be basically everything but home office, but profit. So let's start with home office. In this example, my home office is 0. Let me just fictitiously give it a number, right? So if I give this a number, 3%, then this will be my home office. Wouldn't you agree? So here I will have that much money for home office. Makes sense? So and then here I will have the summation of different other things that we call field overhead. That would be these guys plus the bond plus what I have up there as sheet one, right? And that'll comprise this guy right here. And my profit is simply this guy right there. So all good. So I have this guy right here. I have my home office value. In this case, I don't have one, so I'm going to go ahead and delete it again. But in case you do, you just, you say that this cell is equal to whatever I have here as home office. And then field overhead is going to be this number, less this, plus that. Make sense? So, and these should add up. So if I take these two and add them together, I should receive 23%. And when I take these two, 77 and 23, and add them together, I should get 100%, right? And we said that these percentages are called margins. So if I ask, what's your profit margin, you say 6%. If I say, what's your direct or gross profit margin, you say 23%. And if I say, what's your markup, you have a way to tell me what that markup is, correct? You would say markup is the ratio between indirect and direct costs, so 30%, right? Markup can be also calculated from this guy right here. Markup also can be calculated from these two. So you had multiple fashions and equations of finding that markup. So I'll leave it to your imagination. You can actually work on that on your own time. But my final message to you is that this is it. We actually have done everything. We started from nothing. We have accomplished. We have finalized this Billy C store. Now, what is necessary for the remaining of this semester is to apply what we learned here throughout these modules to our semester project. So for your semester project, you literally need to give me this table. It will ask you about the markup of your project. I will